All right. I'm very excited to talk to you all today. I know that my personal experience might be very different from some of yours, but I'll tell you a little bit about me and how I ended up homeschooling my daughter 4 years ago and how on earth I've survived because it is really a testament to survival. If you've done both, you know that at the end of the day, if everyone's still alive, all your work is done, and your house is like somewhere between CYS is going to come and you're great, you're happy, right? So I have been with PNC for 10 years now. I've had multiple roles, always in technology, though. I've worked as an application systems manager. I've worked as a project manager. I've worked as a program director. And currently, I've switched over and I work in business continuity. So, as a homeschooling mom, life went pretty crazy for me whenever COVID hit because all of a sudden my work, which normally is, an 8 to 10 hour day, became almost 24 hours a day work. So it was extremely challenging, and I will talk about that a little bit. But about 4 years ago, my daughter, who was in second grade at the time, was going to a traditional brick and mortar school, and she was doing okay. But my daughter has ADHD, and she has some vision impairment. Most people would never know it because she's so bright and outgoing, and they think, wow, she's so smart, and she is. But she could not pay attention in regular school, and she was having a lot of vision issues, taking tests and things. And I watched, all of her grades whenever she was little. They were always like, you'd get excellent or satisfactory or whatever. Once the letter grades started coming, I watched her go from A's to B's to C's to barely surviving, and it didn't really match her intellect. So I thought I have to do something. And I made some huge changes in my life at PNC. I made some huge changes at home, and I actually switched jobs. I looked for a job at PNC instead of the role I was in that would allow me to work exclusively remote. And, those jobs at the time were not easy to come by. So it took time, it took planning, it took a lot, but I did eventually find a situation in business continuity that would work. And I, basically brought my daughter home. And the first year we did online school. And that's what most of you are doing now. So I've had that experience. It did not work well for me, and it did not work well for her because we were so busy, like paying attention to this prescribed schedule. And it never failed that, like, my daughter needed me right at the moment that I was supposed to give a presentation, or my daughter's, class had to join at this time. I had to join at this time, and the bandwidth for the Wi-Fi would go crazy. So we just had so many issues. After 1 year, we decided to do part online schooling and part homeschooling. And after that year, my daughter decided she just doesn't like online school. And now I 100% homeschool her. So I have experience with both, and I hope I can be a resource for you. So let's go to the first slide here. I have a little inspirational quote. This is exactly how I feel. I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. I'm telling you it's going to be worth it. And that is absolutely true. I feel so much more peace at home. I feel so much more in control at work because I'm not worried about my daughter at school. I'm actually really happy when I have my reviews with my boss. She always asks how I'm doing, and I say, I'm great. She says, you like business continuity? And I said, yes, I love what I do. I love working for PNC. I love homeschooling my daughter, and I am pretty darn happy, even in all this chaos. So for me and my family, this was right. Okay, let's go to the first slide. So today, I'm going to give you the top 10 ways that basically I've succeeded at homeschooling. You may not be able to apply every one of these things, but I'm really hoping that you can take some of this and apply it to your life so that you feel a little happier, more in control, and are excited about your kid learning and about coming to work. So these are the 10 points I'm going to go through. Mapping out the year in advance, planning your week on the weekend before, doing some advanced meal plan and prep, coming up with a good childcare plan, taking full advantage of the morning. And that's probably the biggest secret to my success so far. I get up really early, but maybe you do too. But I'll talk more about that in a bit. I take advantage of the lunch hour. I always take my lunch hour. If I don't take it at noon, I take it sometime. It's really important to me that I stop working for an hour, pay attention to my kid, and come back to work an hour later. School when it works for your family. Outsource things. I think this is the biggest one that was a game changer for me. Change the way that I think about what school is supposed to look like. This was a hard one because I'm a traditionalist and I'm definitely a rule person. So I always felt that school was a prescribed way. And me changing how I thought about that was it was a long process. So don't forget, finally, that you're still a person. I get in a rut where it's like, make dinner, take kid here, do this, go to bed, get up, do all the things, come to work, then repeat, take kids to places. It becomes this cycle. And every once in a while, I crash and I think I have to go get a massage or go for a walk or just eat some chocolate that I have hidden or, do something that's just for me. So let's go through these. Let's go to the first slide. Thank you. All right. So on the little fake computer screen there, this is a little glimpse into my craziness. I start the year before in about May, and I start mapping out all of the things I'm going to do with my daughter for the next year. And that means first I say, okay, what am I going to do online? What are we going to use for each one of your subjects? What curriculum are we going to use? Are we going to use, a canned program that I just buy and we do the lessons in order? Am I going to use some type of curriculum that has phone support? Are you going to take a class online from a teacher? Are we going to do, when you really get into homeschooling, there's all these different methods. There's Montessori, there's Charlotte Mason, there's eclectic homeschooling. And of course, you can sit and learn about all of those, or you can just say, okay, my kid is ready for Algebra 1. I'm going to buy an Algebra 1 program. But I think of all of this from May until about mid-August. And I use a nice spreadsheet. I put across the top, I put the weeks of the year. And you would notice if I showed you the whole thing that the summer months are included. We don't really go to school so much in the summer, but there are some things we do during the summer. And if you are in Pennsylvania, we're required to do 180 days of school. In other states, it's by the hour. Some states do not have an hour mandate. Some do not have a day mandate. They move forward when you say they do. But I will speak from my experience in Pennsylvania. It's 180 days. So let's say in the middle of the summer, we're planning to go to some national parks. I may say, okay, we're going to use 3 of those park days as school days. And I will take with us some extra enrichment so that we're doing a little bit more like learning about fungus when we see it, or learning about lichen or animals, so that we go a little more in depth. We physically see the place and then we say, okay, this was a school day. So it is very nice to be able to kind of map that out for the year. And I don't map out, what exactly they're going to do every day. As you can see here, this is more like big things. I'm like, okay, we've got December. And in December, we're going to do, maybe we're going to learn about the Vikings. We're going to do life science. We're going to read Shakespeare, whatever it might be. And then when I get to that actual week, then I plan out the exact activities or what lessons and what pages my daughter's going to have to complete. So that is my biggest tip, because then going into August, I have this lovely, ginormous spreadsheet, and I know what I'm going to do for the year. I've bought all the curriculum. I've found all the books. I've found all the manipulatives and games and things, so that I'm not running around like a crazy person when school is actually in session. And I have more time during those months because my kid is outside playing and, she's doing kid things. So summer is a great time to get that prep work done. If you're switching mid-year, don't panic. At least plan out a month at a time so that you have some sort of window into the future. Okay, let's go to the second one. If we can go to the next slide there, Natalie. Okay, so what I really recommend is when you finish school on Friday, kick your kids out, finish work. And when you're like, before you go do something Friday night, sit down with a little spreadsheet, take a look at your year plan, or if you're doing online school, you can even look out to the next week and try to see what the teachers have sent and try to get some semblance of what the schedule is going to be. So I made like a homeschool planning sheet, goes Monday through Friday, has all the subjects that we're going to do. And on Friday, before I wrap things up, I write down everything that's going to happen the next week. The reason that I do that is that, let's say that we're going to make a drawing robot and I'm going to need tiny servo motors and I'm going to need electrical leads and batteries. Okay, like Tuesday, while I'm working and realize this is on the agenda, is the wrong time to have to go figure out where those supplies are. If I do it on Friday, I can put an Amazon order in and have everything there Monday morning. If I have to actually run out somewhere, I can do it over the weekend while I have some time. If I find that there's something coming up the next week that's really going to screw me up between work and homeschool, that's also a good time to recognize that. Obviously last week, I knew that this presentation was on the agenda, and I knew that I did not want my kid home at all while I was talking to you. So, Friday I said, okay, I have these events next week. I have to find childcare during that time or make a plan. And I took care of that. She'll walk in the door probably as we're finishing. So I feel like that keeps me calmer on the weekend because I already know what I'm going to do. And then it makes Monday flow smoothly because I have everything. All right, so let's go to the next tip or trick. So number 3 here, this is something I did not embrace until this year. And mostly because we were eating so much fast food, DoorDash, Grubhub. I mean, I actually had accounts with Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash. And I was looking at the amount of money I was spending and I thought, this is insane. Like I could go on vacations if I stopped doing this. So I surfed the internet and, read a lot about meal planning and doing some advanced planning. And I've been trying to embrace this now. So am I perfect at it? No. Do I still order Grubhub and stuff? Yes. But I would say I only do it a couple days a week as opposed to it was to the point where they were like, hi, Becca, what do you want for dinner? So what I do, sit down again. This is my Friday afternoon, plan the school stuff out for the next week, and I plan out the meals for the next week. Planning the meals is good, again, because you can go grocery shopping over the weekend or you can get an Instacart order in over the weekend. But the biggest thing is doing the prep work over the weekend. I was very guilty of feeling rushed. It was always like me yelling, like, did you finish this? Did you finish that? I have a meeting in 4 minutes. Get it done. Get it done. And then all of a sudden it would be 5:00. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to make for dinner? So, you end up microwaving or ordering out. So what I've been doing is usually Sunday right after church before we go visit. That's when I do some cooking and I will prep anything that needs prepped for the week. Like, let's say I'm going to make a big old lasagna. That is not something I'm going to do Monday through Friday. I will make the lasagna. I will cook it. I will cover it. I will freeze it in small pieces so that we can take them out in the morning and, zap them when it's dinner time. I also will, cut vegetables for things. The biggest one, and this is a great one for, especially if you've got older kids at home, I feel like homeschooling is basically, revolving around snacks all day. It's like, do we have anything to eat? Can I have this? And they know when I'm focused and I'm in a meeting and they hold up like 2 bags of Ho-Hos and they're like, and I'm going, what? I'm very likely to go, yeah, go ahead. Have the Ho-Hos, right? So my child is, eating horrible things all week, right? Instead of that, what I've been doing is I actually have a little tray that goes in my fridge and it has little compartments in it. And I line up somewhat healthy snacks. And that goes in on Sunday night. So during the week, if you've eaten all your snacks for the day, you're SOL. But I'll put carrots, I'll put dip, I'll put edamame, I'll put chips and dip. My kid likes some weird stuff too, so we won't go into all that. But she has weird tastes. But you can have those things prepped. If you have a kid that will only eat M&Ms, fine, prep the bags of M&Ms, but put 20 in a bag instead of 700. Do the best you can, right? And then I also like that because I was using a lot of disposable containers, trying to be a little more environmentally friendly. So I've gotten some little reusable snack cups, and I like that because I feel like, hey, that's something I can do easily to help the environment. So that might not be practical all the time, but it's definitely great to just have that ready. Your kid can grab and go. All right, so that's meal planning. Somebody did mention to me in a little comment, hey, Becca, what about the crock pot? Oh, yes. So sometimes I will put all my ingredients in a bag, and in the morning I come out, I dump the frozen meat into the crock pot, get the bag and dump the stuff in, turn it on, shut it, dinner's ready in 8 hours. So that's been another, great tip, and you're absolutely right. Thank you. All right, let's go on to number 4. Okay, so this is the one that is, I think, the most difficult. No matter what you do, there are going to be times that you have to have childcare. Even with a 10-year-old who's pretty self-sufficient, there's still times that I can't have her here, or I know she's going to need more help and I can't give it to her because I have a packed day. So I'm going to go through some ideas. I know that, we had some great ideas from Ashley. These are some things that I've researched, but some things to consider. So obviously, free's the best, right? And you've probably thought through these. But some free ideas, obviously, your spouse, if they don't work, or significant other, family, close friends, or even if you have much older children, letting them watch themselves. Those are great options. I think one of the best low-cost options, and it's a little bit like the pod learning that Ashley talked about earlier, is to have a co-op. It might not be a formal co-op. Maybe it's you and 2 other moms or dads that have decided, hey, I'm going to take the kids the days that you have crazy schedules, and you take the kids the days that I have crazy schedules, and we rotate that around. I'm actually doing that this year. There's another little girl that lives down the street. She is a single mom. Her mom works mostly at home, but about 2 or 3 days a week in the office. So she has my daughter right now. She made sure that today was a work from home day for her. And I have her daughter here a couple days a week. And, we just help each other. And I think that's what we have to do, especially in this weird COVID year. So this is good because it's no cost. I mean, I don't charge her. She doesn't charge me. We just swap it around. The next option would be minimal cost. This might be where you give somebody $25 a day or something like that, similar to the center at the O'Brien Center. So 2 that I've found very helpful. One is the mother's helper idea, or father's helper. The other is stay-at-home parent. So let's say that once you get to know other people that have children at home, you might find out that there's a high school student that finishes their work by 1 or 2 o'clock that could come over and give you a few hours of help. Or maybe they don't like to start school until 10 o'clock, and maybe their type of schooling allows them that flexibility. Maybe they can come in the morning to help you get started. So reach out. Don't be afraid to ask those questions if you have friends with teen, children. Even check with your, if you have a religious affiliation, see if there's a youth group. Maybe those kids might be willing. Some kids have to do volunteer service hours to graduate, or to receive certain religious things. So there may even be some options there for you that don't cost anything. The next one is, a stay-at-home parent that you know. I don't know how I know as many stay-at-home parents as I do, because as a working mom, most of my friends are also workers, right? But I've been blessed to, meet some other moms that stay at home, and I have been able to make that phone call like, hey, I've got a problem. I have a 4 hour meeting. I need quiet. I've got to do a spreadsheet. I've got to plan a presentation. I just can't have chaos today. Can my kid come over? And that has worked out pretty well. I try to spread those out and, really save those requests for the emergencies. But that's certainly another option. And it's also an option. Sometimes the mom says, hey, I'll do it for a small amount of money. It's not a lot of work. I have kids at home anyway, and I could use a little extra income. So you might work something out like that. I do encourage you, though, to make sure that if you're having people come into your house, that you research the tax laws and make sure that you're doing things above board so that you don't run into issues later. But that's just a little word of caution. Now, the next level of cost is daycare or an au pair. Daycare, I think most of you know what that is. The au pair option is one that I've looked into. I have had friends use it. I have decided that it is not for me. The reason I've decided it is not for me is because I have a very small home. I don't feel that I have a good separate area for this person to live where they would feel like they had some freedoms. And I think I would go absolutely bonkers if someone moved into my house and like started rearranging my kitchen or, whatever. So I know that's not for me. But some people are like, hey, we've got this great room over the garage. We could have somebody come in from maybe England or Spain or maybe where your heritage is from and really have a great experience. You normally don't have to pay that person other than a small stipend. You provide the room and board and, maybe a small amount of living expenses. But it can be very inexpensive and it can go great or it can be awful. So that's another thing to consider. Moving into the higher cost options, there's the option of having a nanny. In Pittsburgh, now I did have a nanny when my daughter was little because I worked in the office and she didn't do very well in daycare, so we ended up with a nanny. And I know nanny costs have gone way up. The going rate in Pittsburgh is usually somewhere between $12 and $20+ an hour. Especially if you have to leave the house and drive to work. I would be gone almost 10 hours a day. So that added up so fast. There were some months I was writing ginormous checks to a babysitter. We weren't doing anything fun. It was great because my daughter loved the nanny, but it was profoundly expensive and prohibitive. We eventually said, can't do this anymore. Another option is a private tutor. Maybe you can handle the childcare piece, but maybe your child is asking you about, advanced physics, something you never studied, or something that you barely survived in school, whether it was algebra, or maybe you're not a history person. Having a tutor is wonderful, although professional tutor rates for someone with a master's degree or, a certified teacher, they normally do want between $25 and $50 an hour. So another option is maybe you find a student who's willing to work with your child at a more reasonable rate. But I understand, if you've got the education, you should make the good hourly wage. So if you can afford that, that's an option. I did also list on this slide the number for the EAP group, and obviously we have Ashley's resources as well. So that's a little overview of some things to think about for childcare. Let's go to 5. Okay, so I'm going to pull back the curtains a little bit and show you what my life is like from 5:30 in the morning until I sign on at 9 o'clock. So I actually wake up at 5. I put 5:30 because from 5 to 5:30, my husband is getting a shower. I'm usually helping him, I don't know, he can never find anything. So I'm usually running around finding whatever it is he can't find, throwing his lunch in a bag for him because he works outside the home. So by 5:30, he's gone and I start my day. At 5:45, if I feel inspired, I will do a brief workout. I just do a tape because I can't leave the house while my kid is sleeping. I feel like she's not quite at that age yet. So but sometimes I do go walk up and down the street because I can still see my house. So that's about all the exercise I get, 15, 20 minutes to a half hour in the morning, but then I feel awake. And I feel like I did something. I am not a twig, but I know I need to, continue to keep myself healthy. So that's usually my early morning. When I get back, I will have something to eat. I have some coffee or tea, and by 6:30, I'm usually kind of like chill. If you happen to be someone that's into prayer or mindfulness or journaling, or you just like to scroll Facebook without anyone, bothering you for a little bit, from about 6:30 to 6:45, that's my I'm done eating. I'm just going to sit here and stare at the wall and do my thing. Then at about 6:45, I've even told my boss I have work FOMO. So I'm always afraid that if I'm not checking my email, I'm missing something important. So if I don't do it before I even get out of bed, which does happen some days, around 6:45, I just scroll through and see if I've gotten any emails overnight. What meetings do I have today? Is there anything that I'm not thinking about? Because I want to walk into my day kind of knowing what's ahead of me. Sometimes some surprise emails come in overnight and I go, oh my gosh, tomorrow is not going to be like I thought. Gives me a chance to sort of prepare before I walk into a train wreck, right? If things are calm, then, after I've checked emails and all that, I will go toss some laundry in, maybe unstack the dishwasher from the night before, maybe put away some of the, whirlwind of a mess my daughter has made in the evening. Try to do a little bit of housework, but just 15 minutes, nothing major. That's when I go shower, get dressed. At 8 o'clock is when I wake my daughter up. And some days that works. Some days, as you all know, if you're parents, it's like you calling them for an extended period of time, right? But I try to get her up, get her dressed. And she knows if she pushes it, she's going to end up coming downstairs in her pajamas and doing school. And she's going to not get a good breakfast. She's going to get something fast. So, but I am adamant that at 8:30 we start school. The only day of the week we don't is Tuesday, and it's because I have an 8:30 meeting on Tuesdays. But 8:30 we do what I call morning basket, and I'm not going to show you everything in this, but just to kind of give you a little peek, I'm going to put it up on my lap here. So this is kind of what our morning basket looks like. This is the one we did last week. But in the morning, I had a bunch of books for Halloween. We had a game. We did Disney's Haunted Mansion. We had some math we did that you colored them in, and it made this lovely Halloween pattern. We did a unit study about scarecrows and the history of scarecrows. And then we had just, kind of a lot of somewhat informative Halloween books. We learned about pumpkins. She read some spine chillers and solved mysteries. We played this monster flux game. And then I had these envelopes for my daughter. And there was one for each subject. And this might be showing up backwards, but inside these envelopes, she would open them. And I had 5 assignments in there for her. And, an example was for science, there were spooky tricks that she could do that were in a book. So all that she had to do was go through, pick one item from each envelope. She knew what her assignments were for the day. So in the morning, we sat down. We normally pray in the morning because we're a spiritual family. We read a little bit of one of the books. I tell her what she needs to do for the day. And we have, just that half hour to kind of connect. So if you have multiple children, you would do that together. Read them all the same story, read them all the same stuff, maybe play a game with all of them. But it kind of lets them know that they're important and you have their full attention. And then they know at about, 8:57, I'm saying to my daughter and the girl down the street, okay, guys, I got to sign on. I got to go. So they go off. And I don't really do much more with them until I get a break. And that's usually around lunchtime. So, they go off. Sometimes I have to like pause and go find them because my kids go into my kid and the kid down the street, they go into the witness protection program and disappear sometimes. So I will have to go and like find them on the trampoline or find out that they're like up in her closet making a clubhouse and they're supposed to be doing math. But generally, they kind of, the two of them, when the other girl's here, they keep each other on task. So I like that. When it's just my daughter here alone, I have to be a little more of a taskmaster. But generally, from 9 to noon, I'm very focused, get work done, attend my meetings, and then about noon, we take our break. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so using lunchtime wisely. Most importantly, eat something. So, if you're me, I haven't eaten anything in like 6 hours by lunchtime. Lunchtime is not always noon. Let me be clear. Today, lunchtime was like 1:30. But at lunchtime, I grab something quickly. I make sure my kid eats something. I look over whatever work she did from the morning. If I have time, I'll actually check it. Otherwise, I'm just looking to make sure it's done. I'll give her any instructions for what she needs to do in the afternoon. And then usually about 1 or 2 lunchtimes a week, we do something special together. And I created this, I call this a loop schedule. There's a morning loop and an afternoon loop. And this is kind of like the specials that your kids do at school. The problem that I have is I want to do all the things, but there's not enough time to do all the things. So what we do is we pick one item from the morning loop and one item from the afternoon loop each day. And usually the afternoon loop is something that we do together. So this either happens at lunchtime or it happens when I'm done with work. Just a couple examples though, like our afternoon, I teach French, health, cooking, art or art history, music appreciation. Sometimes we go on a nature walk. Sometimes we read poetry. And then we have projects. And then in the morning, these are things that we cycle through before I go to work in that morning basket. So we might read a fairy tale or study Shakespeare. We might play a game. We might have a civics lesson. I might be super lazy and put a movie on that's educational. That's my favorite day. We might do a little geography, or it might be a life skill where, like, I teach, as an example, the last one we did, it was learning how to use household cleaners. Bonus for me because my kid is learning how to clean, or puzzle or game. And then I just use these little bookmarks. These are those magnetic bookmarks that you can get. And after we've done one, I mark it off and we loop through these until we've done all of them. And then I take them off and we loop again. That way, obviously my kid would pick puzzle or game or movie every day. And in this column, they would pick art every single day. So that forces us to do all the subjects. So that's just an example. The other thing is, I will tell you, sometimes it takes us 3 weeks to get through that loop. Sometimes we do it in 7 days. But the important part is we wait until we've done them all to come back around again. I will tell you, like when COVID hit and I was working 16 hours a day, we did none of those things. We did math and reading. And as long as we got math and reading or language arts done, I was happy. I mean, the first week we had no school because I was so overwhelmed. I couldn't even think about doing school. But you have the entire year to get that 180 days in. And thank goodness I was actually really ahead when COVID hit. So I was in good shape, when the time came. Okay, I see my daughter is coming in, so it might get loud here for a minute. All right, let's go on to the next item. Let's go to number 7, waving to my daughter.
Hi.
Okay, girls, go do something.
We'll be outside.
All right, they're going outside, which sounds good. Okay, the next item, school when it works, not when it doesn't. Okay, so let's say that you are a night owl and your kid is a night owl and they are completely incoherent until noon. Do not try to do school at 8 a.m. My schedule works because it works for my family. You may find that what you need to do is have that morning where you start work at 5 a.m. and maybe you wrap work up by 1 or 2 o'clock, unless you have a late meeting. And maybe you do school with your kid in the late afternoon. Maybe you do it late in the evening. You may even need to discuss, your arrangements with your manager and figure out what's going to work for your job and your family. I've talked with my boss quite a bit over the last couple years. There are days I've had to take off because I've hit the wall, and I'm like, I'm taking a personal day. I have nothing going on. And I'll take a day and like clean my house or just regain my sanity or whatever I need to do. But the important thing there is that, you're looking at what matches your work and what matches your child and what matches you, because you may not be a night owl. Maybe you can't teach at 10 p.m., but don't think of the school day as 8 to 5 or 8 to 2:30. The school day, if you homeschool, can be whenever. The other thing that, well, we'll talk about this more in a minute, but the other thing is, when your child goes to brick and mortar school, they leave the house at 7 something or 6 something in the morning. They roll in somewhere between 2:30 and 4 o'clock. And when you really think about it, the amount of time that they're gone from home might be 6 to 8 hours. But the amount of time that they're actually paying attention and then physically doing work typically is very little. When you look at the primary grades up to about third grade, most of the work that they do in a day can be done at home in as little as an hour to an hour and a half. As they get into like the middle part of school, like fourth grade through about sixth or seventh grade, what they say is whatever grade they're in, take 2 hours and then add one additional hour for each grade. So what I'm saying, starting in fourth grade, take 2 hours and add one to that. So 3 hours for fourth grade, 4 hours for fifth grade, 6 hours for, or I'm sorry, 5 hours for sixth grade. And then by the time they're in middle school to high school, that's when schools should be taking 5 to 6 hours or even as many as 8 hours a day. But when they're really little, the actual work they do in kindergarten can happen like that. So you might even find that it's less stressful because if they're doing an online program and your child is, say, first grade, they may need to be online all day. Whereas you might be able to teach them those same skills in 2 hours from 5 to 7 at night. And that might be a whole different level of stress for you. Could be more, but it could also be less. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to show you some different ways that can happen. The other thing is you can do school on Saturday and Sunday. So maybe you only do school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday. You may even decide that you need to consider going part-time. Some people can't balance this. I get it. I'm a multitasker. Not everyone is. And you might have to look at the role that you have and say, can I really do this with this role? That was the situation I was in when I decided to bring my daughter home. The role I had before that, I was in meetings a good 6 to 8 hours a day. I did not have many lunch periods where I didn't have a meeting. I was usually eating while I was in a meeting. Plus, I was working downtown, and the area I live in is a difficult commute. So I knew that unless something changed, there was absolutely no way I could have enough time to focus on my daughter being gone, 10 to 12 hours a day. So, I had to make a change. And it wasn't any lack of my abilities or anything like that. But there are physical limitations to time, right? I don't care how good you are. You can't do absolutely everything. So this is a great choice for me right now. Some people, I do know a couple, parents within ACFR, the group that I work in, that have negotiated different work schedules. Maybe a 4-day, 10-hour work week, maybe working later, maybe having to go part-time. In most cases, if you are a good employee, PNC will work with you to the extent it can. But sometimes PNC can't, and you will have to realize that you might have to change positions to do what you need to do. I've regretted it 0%. I'm starting to get anxious. I would like to get back into things soon. I love my professional career and I love all the interaction in person. But it's not time yet, and I realize that. So hopefully, when it is time, PNC will be back. All right, let's go to number 8. Natalie, oh, there we go. Okay, so this is the part that makes your life super easy. Outsource. And I realize outsourcing can cost money, but you have to say money versus time. Sometimes you have time and no money, so you've got to do it yourself. Sometimes you've got the money, but no time. So these are just some examples of things that I have outsourced at different times over the last 4 years. Obviously, grocery shopping. If you have not tried ordering your groceries and picking them up, try it. It is magical. Plus, no one throws anything extra into your cart while you're shopping. I found I've saved so much money just because I'm not impulse buying. My husband isn't hurling things in there, and my daughter isn't flipping out and asking me for sugar cereals and crazy things. So if you haven't tried that yet, it is worth every extra penny, and it isn't that much money. But I do encourage you to shop for at least a week or 2 weeks at a time. It gets very pricey if you're trying to do Instacart orders, every day, every other day. That doesn't make sense. I would say have a minimum order of maybe $70 to $100 some before you consider it. That way, that surcharge makes sense. Definitely try PNC's virtual wallet bill pay services. I literally have my bills set up to pay themselves. And I don't like doing it through the actual creditor. I like doing it through PNC because I have some control over when those things come out. So I have everything come out on payday. So I have my bills broken into 2 sections. I have it scheduled. And the only thing that I do is on payday, I go in, well, actually the night before, I go in, I glance through, I check the actual bills. Sometimes I make a few adjustments because a bill's a little bit more. Maybe I ordered a movie and my cable bill's higher. I tweak those and boom, it happens. So that's a very easy way to save yourself some time. Cleaning, definitely, you can hire someone. You can entrust your significant other. You can make your kids do things. All of those good ideas. And then sometimes I have to outsource some classes. There are things I just don't know. And I need my kid to learn online. So I have a list here of some of these websites that I've used and some really good resources. So you can take a look at those in your free time. Okay, we have 2 more items. Let's go to number 9. Changing the way that I think about school. I told you this is big. On the left side of this slide, it talks about how our kids learn in school. They use textbooks, worksheets. All the kids have the same curriculum. They have to follow a set plan because you have 30 some kids in a class. I mean, it's by necessity. They play mostly with kids in their own class, their own age. They take 1 or 2 field trips a year. And then, they have separate periods for each type of school. When you homeschool, it's different. A lot of things are hands-on, games, literature, and maybe you don't use workbooks at all. I know, it's crazy. That was what was hard for me to get used to. You might have completely different curriculum for each child because each one of your children are different. You can really match the curriculum to your kid's learning style, which you can't do in a classroom. I mean, it's not practical. You have the ability to let your kid go down rabbit trails. So let's say that my daughter suddenly is interested in stage makeup. I can decide to say, you know what? We're not going to do science. We're not going to do history for the next 3 days. I'm going to let her watch videos on that. We're going to go buy some equipment, let her, do full face makeup on me. I'll look like a zombie or whatever. But you have the ability to let your child kind of explore some of their interests, and that's still school. There's also, some of your weekend outings can turn educational. You just add to them a little bit, maybe go to the library and get some books they can read about what you're doing so that it becomes an educational experience. You can center all of your activities around a theme. I showed you our basket. Just today, my daughter did Viking math. She compared two Viking ships, figured out how to load a Viking ship and how much weight each thing would weigh. And then she used, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division to solve a bunch of word problems about a Viking ship. And there are books for this. I didn't make this crap up, believe me. But, we're studying the Vikings right now, and that fit in. So, boom, math, history, both done. And she got to read a bunch of stuff out loud, so that was some good practice for language arts. Neither one of these is better or worse. I was a nerdy kid who really enjoyed traditional school, and I liked the grades, I liked the pressure. I still think that, if I were to go back, I would still prefer brick and mortar school. My daughter, not at all. Okay, so let's go to the last item. The last item is not forgetting about ourselves. So all I can say about this is, yes, you can go, 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 but you've got to schedule some things just for you. It might just be a bubble bath. It might be blasting your music in the car instead of your kids' music. Might be going out for ice cream with your significant other. Might be going on a big trip. It could be as small or as big as you need it to be. So, that's the last part that, I really want to hit home on is don't lose yourself. Okay, Natalie, I think we've come to the end here. Yep. Thank you. I, Brody, enough. Yes. So I would say that it is a huge conglomeration and balance of all of those things. I really make it a point not to teach during work hours. So she knows 9 to noon and 1 to at least 4 or 4:30. I'm always focused. So there are definitely times during the day where she'll come over and, I'll be working and she'll say like, Mom, I still don't understand what a predicate is. And of course, then I have to look because I'm like, I don't know, what is a predicate? But I will help her when I can. If I'm in a meeting, she gets the look where I'm like, that's Mom, right? I'm mouthing all the words the whole time and yelling at her. But generally speaking, she knows that questions come up at lunchtime. And we've also found that when I need to actually teach, because there are some things like math, she cannot learn out of the book. She needs Mom to explain it to her. So normally when I wrap up for the day before she goes to cheer, we do sit down and we go over the concepts for the next day. And they don't take me that long because, explaining the math might take me 15 minutes. Explaining language arts might be 15 minutes. going over the instruction sheet for a science project might be 15 minutes. The doing of the work is what takes most of the time. When she was younger, we sat right next to each other. We actually had two desks. My desk was next to hers. And, she would like show me things. And as your kids get older, they get more independent, thank goodness. So it's easier now than it used to be. But generally speaking, I try to let her know that I'm still there for her, but she does understand that, like, if mom's working, this is what pays the bills. This is how we get to be able to homeschool. This is how you get to go to cheerleading and all that. So as she's getting older, she's understanding more of that. I hope that explains it. Have there ever been times that I've been like, oh, forget this, and like closed the laptop and helped my daughter? Absolutely, that has happened. There have been times that she's driven me up a wall, and I've pinged Laurie and said like, hey, I'm gonna be gone for an hour, or I've got to sign off for a few minutes. But again, I will do that at a time that's appropriate. I also find personally that I cannot do, like, I used to like make spreadsheets and presentations during the day. I cannot do that during the day. My time for typing things up and doing work that, where I'm producing something, I do that when she goes to bed because it's quieter. So during the day, that's mostly meetings, responding to emails, talking to people, doing research. I may get a few things where I'm typing, but most of the physical work that I do it when she goes to bed. It's just quieter. That's why people on my team will get all these emails from me in the middle of the night and they're like, what is she doing? Well, that's why. I'm like, because it's quiet and I'm done and I'm just sitting here. So that's kind of how I've balanced it. Oh, Natalie, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute. Yes. Thank you. Thanks.